My wife asked me why I was smiling at dinner. I told her I'd found her secret account and her boyfriend's name on the wire transfers. By the time she reached for her phone, I'd already moved everything. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 48 years old, and I've spent the last 19 years doing one thing better than almost anyone in the state of Ohio: following money. Not earning it, not spending it, following it. I'm a forensic accountant. The kind companies call when they suspect someone on the inside is stealing. The kind attorneys hire when a business partner disappears with the quarterly earnings. I find hidden accounts, trace shell companies, reconstruct financial histories that people spent years trying to bury. I am very, very good at it, which made what my wife did either the bravest thing I'd ever seen or the stupidest. Her name is Claire. We've been married 16 years. She gave up her marketing career when our son Leo was born. Her choice, not mine. Though she reminded me of it regularly enough that I stopped pointing that out around year 4. Leo's 16 now, sharp kid, wants to study environmental science at Michigan. Claire threw herself into the neighborhood association, the school board, the charity gala circuit. I provided. She organized. It worked. The way a lot of things work, functionally, quietly, without much warmth. I noticed something was off in February. Not because of anything emotional. I'm not wired that way. I noticed because of a number. I was reviewing our household budget, something I did every quarter, out of habit more than necessity, and a line item caught my eye. A transfer of $4,200 to an account I didn't recognize. The memo said, home renovation deposit. We weren't renovating anything. I checked the account number against our records. It didn't match any contractor we'd used. It didn't match anything. I flagged it and moved on. One anomaly isn't a pattern. 2 weeks later, another transfer. 2 weeks later, another transfer. $3,800. Same account. Memo, landscaping estimate. Our lawn hadn't changed since fall. I pulled the last 6 months of statements. Found 9 transfers. $41,000 total. All small enough to avoid triggering automatic alerts. All with innocuous memos. All to the same account. Routed through a third-party payment processor I recognized immediately. It's one of the platforms people use specifically because it obscures the final destination. I sat at my desk for a long time after that. Here's what I didn't do. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask questions. I didn't let any of it show on my face at dinner that night, or the night after, or the night after that. What I did was exactly what I do for clients. I started building a file. The payment processor had a business registration tied to it. It took me 4 days to trace it through 2 LLCs to a personal account belonging to a man named Derek Solis, 39 years old, independent financial advisor. Had an office in Westerville, about 20 minutes from our house. His LinkedIn was polished, the kind that said I manage wealth for people who have more of it than you without actually saying it. He had a good-looking headshot and a list of credentials that looked impressive, until you looked closer and realized 2 of his certifications had lapsed. I found his name in Claire's phone records. I had access to our family plan, going back 14 months. Calls that lasted 45 minutes, an hour, sometimes longer. Always during school hours. Always on days I was at a client site out of town. I didn't feel what most people probably expect you to feel in that moment. No rage, no nausea. What I felt was something closer to clarity, like a balance sheet finally reconciling after hours of hunting for the discrepancy. I called my attorney. Not a divorce lawyer. Not yet. I called Daniel Forsyth, the attorney who handles the corporate side of my practice. Smart man. Methodical. I told him I needed 60 days. For what? He asked. To finish documenting everything, I said. He was quiet for a moment. Is this personal or professional? Both. Then take the time, he said. And Marcus, don't touch anything you're not supposed to touch. I knew what he meant. I also knew exactly where the line was. Over the next 8 weeks, I did what I'm trained to do. I reconstructed the financial trail from the beginning. The $41,000 was just what I'd found in the household account. When I went deeper into the investment accounts, the property records, the retirement funds, the picture got considerably worse. Claire had been meeting with Derek professionally for over a year. What started as financial planning consultations, which I'd signed off on without much thought. Because why would a forensic accountant question his wife's choice of financial advisor, had evolved into something else entirely. She'd moved $112,000 out of our joint investment accounts in increments small enough to look like routine rebalancing. She transferred the title interest on a rental property we owned in Clintonville, a property that had appreciated significantly, into a holding company. A holding company I'd never heard of, formed 11 months ago, with Derek Solis listed as the registered agent. She'd been building an exit, quietly, systematically, over more than a year. She was going to leave me with the mortgage, the car payments, and the illusion that our finances were intact. The affair was almost secondary by that point. Almost. I found the messages through her cloud backup. She'd set up automatic syncing to a shared family storage account 3 years ago and apparently forgotten about it. I didn't go looking for intimacy. I was looking for financial communications, and I found those too. Derek advising her on how to time the asset transfers, which accounts to touch last, how to structure the holding company to survive a divorce proceeding. He wasn't just her boyfriend. He was her financial co-conspirator. One message stopped me cold. She'd written to him. He'll never figure it out. He thinks he's so smart, but he only looks at other people's numbers. He never looks at his own. I read that 3 times. Then I went back to work. By the time I was ready, I had a complete forensic reconstruction of every dollar that had moved, when it moved, where it went, and who directed it. I had a paper trail connecting Derek Solis to the holding company, to the asset transfers, and to what any competent prosecutor would recognize as conspiracy to commit financial fraud against a spouse. I had printed records, digital backups on 3 separate drives, and a copy stored with Daniel backups on 3 separate drives, and a copy stored with Daniel. I also had something else. In the process of tracing Derek's professional history, I found something that had nothing to do with my marriage at all. He'd been skimming fees from multiple client accounts for years. Not dramatically, a percentage point here, a management fee there, adjusted on the back end so the statements looked clean. But it added up. Across his client base, I estimated he'd taken somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 that didn't belong to him. Some of those clients were elderly. Some were widows who trusted him with everything they had. I documented that too. Separate file. I wasn't sure yet what I was going to do with it. I chose a Thursday evening in April. Leo was at a friend's house for the night. Claire had made pasta. She always cooked on nights I was supposedly working late. Some habit left over from when we first got married, and she was trying to impress me. I came home at the normal time, set my bag down, washed my hands, set my bag down, washed my hands, sat at the kitchen table while she brought plates over. She asked how my day was. I said fine. She started talking about the neighborhood association spring fundraiser. I listened and nodded and ate my pasta and waited. You seem distracted, she said eventually. Just thinking about a case, I said. That was true. I was thinking about this one. She refilled her water glass. I watched her settle back in her chair with the ease of someone who doesn't know they're being watched, who hasn't realized that the thing they were hiding is already found. Claire, I said, I need to ask you something. Sure. She picked up her fork. What's the holding company for? Her fork stopped moving. Just for a second. Then she set it down very carefully, the way people do when they need their hands to be free. What holding company? She said. The one you and Derek formed in May of last year. The one that currently holds the title to the Clintonville property. I kept my voice the way I keep it in depositions. Level. Informational. The one that received $112,000 from our joint investment accounts over the past 14 months. She opened her mouth, closed it. I'm not angry, I said. I'm finished. There's a difference. She tried 3 different things in the next 10 minutes. She tried confusion. Maybe she'd misunderstood some paperwork Derek had given her. Maybe she'd signed something without reading it carefully. She tried minimizing. It wasn't as much as it sounded like. The property had been in her name partly anyway. She was just protecting herself. She tried turning it around. I was never home. She'd been lonely for years. I treated our marriage like a line item. I let her say all of it. Then I told her that Daniel Forsythe had filed divorce proceedings that morning, that I'd already moved our remaining joint assets into a protected account pending court review, which I was legally entitled to do, given documented evidence of marital waste, that she had, per the paperwork, 30 days to retain counsel. She stared at me. You planned this. I documented it, I said. There's a difference. Marcus, the kids need to know, I said. Leo needs to hear this from me, not piece it together on his own. I'm going to tell him this weekend. I stood up and picked up my bag. I'm staying at the Marriott on High Street. I'll be in touch through Daniel. I left before she could respond. Leo took it the way 16-year-old boys often take the worst news of their lives, quietly, jaw tight, asking practical questions because the emotional ones are too big to say out loud. We were sitting in my mother's living room in Grandview Heights on Saturday morning. He'd driven himself over. He'd had his license 4 months and still got a small proud look on his face every time he parked the car. He sat across from me with his hands on his knees, and I told him straight. His mother and I were divorcing. She'd been in a relationship with someone else. She'd also moved money out of our shared accounts without my knowledge. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "How much money?" I told him. He nodded slowly, the way he does when he's processing a fact he doesn't like but accepts anyway. "Are we okay? Like financially?" "We're fine," I said. "That's already being handled." "What about college?" "Your college fund is in a separate custodial account I set up when you were 3. She couldn't touch it. It's intact." He exhaled. Then he looked at me with an expression that was older than 16. "Dad, did you know for a while before you said anything?" "A few months." "Why didn't you say something sooner?" "Because I needed to be certain," I said. "And because once I said something, everything would change. I wanted to make sure we were protected first." He chewed on that. "Is that why you do that job? Because you're good at waiting?" I almost smiled. "Probably." He didn't cry. He asked if he could stay with me at the hotel, and I said yes. We ordered room service and watched a game and didn't talk about his mother again that night. But at some point, around 11, he said from across the room, "Dad, she shouldn't have done that." "No," I said. "She shouldn't have. I'm still gonna talk to her. She's still my mom." "I know. I'm not asking you not to." He was quiet again. Then, "But I'm coming with you. When this is over, wherever you end up." I didn't answer right away. The game was on. The room was quiet. "Okay," I said. The deposition was scheduled 3 weeks after filing. Claire had retained a family law attorney named Patricia Howe. Good reputation, known for being aggressive. Daniel had pulled in a partner with divorce litigation experience. A woman named Ruth Garrett, who had the energy of someone who finds conflict genuinely enjoyable. I sat across the table from Claire for the first time since that Thursday dinner. She looked tired. She looked like someone who'd spent 3 weeks being told by an attorney that the situation was not, in fact, recoverable. Patricia Howe opened by challenging the asset freeze, arguing I'd acted unilaterally and in bad faith. Ruth laid the financial reconstruction on the table. All 47 pages of it. Patricia went quiet for a moment that stretched uncomfortably. "Mr. Webb," she said finally, "these documents allege a pattern of financial fraud and conspiracy with a third party. This is a significant escalation." "They document a pattern of financial fraud and conspiracy with a third party," Ruth corrected pleasantly. "The allegation is already in the filing. What's on the table now is whether we resolve this here or continue to a full hearing, at which point Mr. Webb would be prepared to introduce additional evidence regarding Mr. Solis's professional conduct." I watched Claire's face. "What additional evidence?" Patricia asked carefully. "Mr. Webb, in the course of his professional review, identified a pattern of fee irregularities in Mr. Solis's client accounts," Ruth said. "Irregularities that appear to have been ongoing for several years and may constitute violations of Ohio securities law as well as SEC regulations. That documentation is currently with Mr. Dowan, Webb's attorney, pending a decision about whether to refer it to the appropriate authorities." Patricia asked for a recess. She and Claire stepped out. They were gone for 22 minutes. When they came back, Patricia asked what our terms were. We were very specific about our terms. Claire received her car, personal belongings, and the contents of her personal checking account. She received no claim to the business, the primary residence, purchased before our marriage, solely in my name, or any of the joint investment accounts, given the documented marital waste. She received no claim to the Clintonville property, which was returned to my name pending the dissolution of the holding company. She received spousal support for 18 months, while she reestablished herself professionally, contingent on no further legal action. In exchange, I agreed to hold the information about Derek in a sealed filing with Daniel rather than referring it to the SEC immediately. If Claire or Derek attempted to contest any element of the settlement, file any subsequent motions, or interfere with my custody arrangement with Leo, the referral would happen within 48 hours. Patricia called it coercive. Ruth called it coercive. Ruth called it proportionate. I called it settled. Claire signed everything on a Wednesday afternoon. She didn't look at me when she signed, and I didn't need her to. What I needed was already done. The harder conversation was Leo. He'd asked to be at the house when Claire came to get her things. I said that was his choice to make. He stood in the front hallway with his arms crossed, the same posture Claire had when she was digging in, and watched her bring boxes out to the car Derek had sent for her. Derek didn't come himself. Smart decision. Claire stopped in front of Leo on her third trip out. She started to say something. He let her say it. She told him she loved him, that none of this was about him, that she hoped someday he'd understand. He said, "I understand now, Mom. I just don't agree with it." She didn't have an answer for that. She finished loading the car and left. Afterward, Leo went up to his room. I gave him an hour. Then I knocked on his door and asked if he wanted to get food. He said yes. We drove to his favorite burger place in Grandview and didn't talk about his mother for the whole meal. We talked about Michigan, about whether he was going to pitch for the Summer League, about a documentary he'd watched about coral reef restoration. On the drive home, he said, she texted me. "Okay, she wants to meet for coffee. Just the two of us." "That's between you and her," I said. "I'm not going to tell you not to." He looked out the window. "I think I will. Eventually. Not yet." "That's fair." "Are you going to be okay?" he asked. Same question, same voice he'd had since he was small and since something was wrong. "Yes," I said. "I'm genuinely okay." He looked at me like he was deciding whether to believe that. Then he nodded once and turned back to the window. 4 months after the divorce finalized, I got a call from the Ohio Division of Securities. They'd been notified of potential irregularities in an independent advisor's client accounts and were opening a formal investigation. They wanted my documentation. I'd referred the Derek file 3 weeks earlier. Not because of the divorce. The divorce was over, the terms were honored, everything was settled. I referred it because of the widows. Because of the retired school teacher I'd found in his client list who'd handed him her entire savings at 68 years old and trusted him with it. Because some things aren't about leverage. Some things are just about right. I gave the investigator everything. Clean file, clearly organized, annotated. The same word product I'd give any client. "This is thorough," the investigator said. "It's what I do," I said. The investigation took another 7 months. I wasn't centrally involved. I provided the documents, not the testimony. But I followed the case through professional channels the way you follow news about an industry you know well. Derek Solis surrendered his licenses in November. Civil suits followed from 3 former clients. Criminal charges were pending as of the last update I had. Claire called me once during that period. I was in my car outside a client's office in Columbus, and her name came up on the screen, and I sat there for a moment deciding. Then I answered. She asked if I'd referred Derek to the investigators. "Yes," I said. She was quiet. "Then, because of what he did to those clients." "Yes, not because of me." "No, Claire. Not because of me." "No, Claire. Not because of you." She seemed to need to hear that. I understood it. She'd spent a year building a life with someone who turned out to have been stealing from elderly people's retirement accounts. That wasn't her fault. Her choices and his were separate things. "Is Leo doing okay?" she asked. "Ask him," I said. "He'll tell you." "He's not. He's still cautious with me." "He's working through it," I said. "Give him time." She thanked me. I told her to take care of herself. Then we hung up. Leo did meet her for coffee eventually. He told me about it on a Sunday morning, matter-of-factly, over breakfast. It was fine, he said. Weird, but fine. She seemed like she was trying. He wasn't sure yet what he wanted the relationship to look like going forward, but he wasn't going to just cut her off entirely. "Is that okay with you?" he asked. "It's your relationship with your mother," I said. "I don't get a vote." He nodded. Then he asked if I'd made enough coffee for 2 cups, and we talked about his summer internship application, and the conversation was over. I won't pretend the year wasn't hard. There were nights in the hotel before we moved back into the house when the silence was genuinely bad. 16 years of noise, a marriage, a household, someone else in the other room, and then nothing. I'm not someone who processes things aloud or calls friends to talk about how he's feeling. I worked. I ran. I cooked dinner for Leo on the nights he was with me and ate standing over the counter when he wasn't. I was functional. I was fine. There's a difference between those things and being okay, and for a while I was only the first 2. What changed it, oddly, was work. I took a pro bono case in September, an elderly couple in Dayton whose financial advisor had vanished with a significant portion of their savings. Referred by a nonprofit that helps fraud victims navigate legal recovery. I don't usually take pro bono work. I'm not in a position where I need the profile, and my caseload is already substantial. But something about the timing felt right. The couple's names were Earl and Betty, 73 and 70, married 51 years, sitting in their kitchen with a folder of statements that had been falsified for 3 years. Earl had worked construction. Betty had been a school librarian. They'd saved carefully and trusted the wrong person, and now they were sitting across the table from me figuring out if they could afford to stay in their house. I found the money. Not all of it. Some was genuinely gone, but enough. The advisor had made mistakes that most people wouldn't catch, but most people aren't forensic accountants. We recovered $180,000 through civil action and an insurance claim I identified that the couple didn't know existed. Betty cried when Daniel called with the settlement figure. Earl shook my hand for a long time and didn't say much. He didn't need to. I drove home that evening feeling something I hadn't felt in a while. Not satisfaction exactly, more like purpose, but located correctly, in the right place, aimed at the right thing. I called Leo on the way home and asked if he wanted to order pizza. He said yes, and could we watch something decent for once and not the accounting documentaries I always picked. I told him that forensic accounting documentaries were riveting and he had no taste. He said I was embarrassing. We watched a nature documentary he picked out and argued about whether the narrator was as good as David Attenborough, and I ate 3 more slices than I should have. And at some point I realized I wasn't performing okayness anymore. I was just okay. Leo introduced me to his girlfriend in November. He did it like he was bracing for something. Brought her over for dinner. Hovered near the kitchen entrance while I cooked. Came up with 3 reasons why it was totally casual and no big deal. Her name was Priya. Pre-med, debate team. Had strong opinions about the university's dining hall menu that she shared at length. She asked me intelligent questions about my work and listened to the answers. After she left, Leo stood in the kitchen and said, "So?" "She's great," I said. He relaxed about 6 inches. "Yeah? She's smarter than you." "I know," he said. "I think that's the point." I laughed. Actually laughed. The kind that comes out before you plan it. The thing I didn't expect. And I should say this plainly because I think people leave it out of these stories. Is that rebuilding isn't dramatic. It isn't a moment. It's a Tuesday where you cook something new and it comes out right. It's a Saturday morning run where you're not thinking about anything in particular, and you notice the neighborhood looks good in early light. It's Leo leaving a note on the counter that says "Went to Prius. Fruit in the fridge, don't work too late," and meaning it as a directive, not a suggestion. The divorce had cost me a year. The deception before it, Claire's, and my own willingness to let a functional marriage substitute for a real one, had cost considerably more. I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. I'd spent 16 years providing well for a household and calling it intimacy, and that's not entirely her failure. It was easier to follow other people's money than to examine my own choices. I thought about that sometimes, not with guilt exactly, but with the kind of honesty that comes when the noise is gone and you're left with what's actually true. The year Leo turned 17, he asked me a question I didn't expect. We were driving back from his last summer league game. He pitched well. 4 innings, 2 strikeouts. And he was loose and good-humored in the passenger seat. And out of nowhere he asked, "Do you think you'll get married again?" I kept my eyes on the road. "I don't know. Maybe. Would you want to?" I thought about it. If it was the right thing, yeah. I think I would. What would the right thing look like? Someone honest, I said. Someone with their own life. Someone who doesn't need me to provide everything and then resent me for providing it. He was quiet for a moment. Then, "That's pretty specific. I've had time to think about it." "Fair," he said. And then we talked about his pitch mechanics for the rest of the drive. And that was that. There's no epilogue I can hand you that packages this neatly. Claire is working again. She went back into marketing consulting, apparently doing well. She and Leo have found something workable between them. They have dinner once a month or so, and he comes home from those evenings, quieter than usual, but not unhappy. She and I don't communicate beyond co-parenting logistics, which we handle through a shared calendar and the occasional short email. Civilly. Adequately. The way former things should be handled. Derek Solis is in the middle of proceedings I don't follow closely anymore. He made his choices. They found him. I took on 2 more pro bono fraud cases through the nonprofit. I'm considering formalizing the arrangement, setting aside a certain portion of my practice for work like the Dayton case. Leo thinks it's a good idea. He's 17 and already opinionated about how I spend my professional time. I find this mostly endearing. Last fall, we drove up to visit the Michigan campus for the first time. Just a Saturday trip, no tour scheduled, just walking around to see how it felt. Leo walked the quad with his hands in his jacket pockets, looking at everything carefully, the way he does when he's making up his mind about something important. I can see myself here, he said. Yeah? Yeah. He looked over at me. You'd be okay? Without me around all the time? I'd be fine, I said. And I meant it the right way this time. We got coffee in a cafe near the engineering building and sat by the window. And Leo talked about the environmental science program, about a research lab he'd read about whether he should try to get a work-study position his first year. He talked for a long time, leaning forward over his coffee, and I listened to all of it. When we got back in the car for the drive home, I thought about where I'd been 2 years earlier. A hotel room 3 blocks from a house I'd paid for, in the dark, reviewing documentation on a laptop, alone in the way that follows you into rooms and stays. I wasn't in that place anymore. I'd built something else in the space that opened up. Not the same thing. Not a replacement. Just something real. An honest life. Mine. I've made my peace with what it cost to get here. Most days, sitting across from my son while he talks about coral reefs or Michigan or pitching mechanics or whatever it is today, I don't feel the weight of it at all. Most days I feel exactly what I told him I would. Better than okay.